All right. My name is Jeff Anderson, and I am standing here with my colleagues, Taylor Stipple, who is one of the lawyers with our firm, Jeff Anderson and Associates, and also um, um, my partner and our partner in this endeavor, Cynthia LaFave. She and her firm out of Albany have partnered with us to help do what we can to encourage and work with every survivor that breaks the silence and comes to us, and together do everything we can now that there is a chance under the Child Victims Act for survivors to act, to do what we can together with the survivors to protect other kids in the future, and to really do what we can with the survivors to clean up those institutions and those individuals who have made the choices to protect offenders among them. So we stand today together on the shoulders of some very courageous survivors who, under the Child Victims Act, just passed into law and effective yesterday, allowed us and allowed the survivors to anonymously, that is, not use their name unless they chose to actually bring legal action in the state of New York for childhood sexual abuse by trusted authority figures. And in the cases before us, it brings us together today, is the Catholic Diocese and the bishops in Ogdensburg. And as of yesterday, we, on behalf of 14 courageous survivors, filed 14 cases against the Catholic Diocese in Ogdensburg. In those cases, we and the survivors identified 4 new offenders, perpetrators who were priests or still are priests, who have never been disclosed or revealed before as child molesting offenders. In the lawsuits that have been filed, there are 13 offenders identified, and in the 13, there are 4 in red here whose names are listed who have never been publicly revealed before. Come on in. And so, what we want the survivors to know, and what really brings us together, is it's time for the truth to be known that has been so hidden by so many here in Ogdensburg and across this state by the Catholic bishops. We want survivors to know that it's not just time for their truth to be told, but to be heard and to be believed. We want survivors to know that you can be protected and remain anonymous, but you can identify your offender and those that chose to protect him. And we want survivors to know that every time you come forth and bring these actions as we have with you in the last 2 days, you are doing something to protect other kids and ultimately helping recover your own power, because this is not about sex. This is about power and the abuse of it. And when you speak your truth and you share it, and you know you can be believed, because we do, you're reclaiming the power that you did not have as a child. And so this is about a declaration and a reclamation of your power. And I just want to say personally, having worked in this space and with survivors for 37 years, how grateful I personally am, and all those with whom I work, to each of the survivors who share their secret after carrying it for so many years, sometimes decades, and repose enough will to work with us to do what now has never been allowed to be done in New York, and that is to begin a massive and large-scale cleanup of the Roman Catholic Church and the Catholic bishops in New York. They have hidden behind the statute of limitations for decades. They have never been held to scrutiny or to light or to the spotlight. And now that these cases are allowed to be brought, we knew that they had to come first among the cases that we were going to bring. And as a result, we knew that in Ogdensburg and in this diocese and in this geography, there are a lot of offenders that had never been revealed and yet to be. We knew that practices here are dangerous and have been perilous. And there's been a strict adherence by the Catholic bishops here to adhere to secrecy and the avoidance of scandal. And so with that, I'd like to just turn it over to you, Cynthia, and share with us what brings us together and why we stand with the survivors.
Thank you. My name is Cynthia LaFave. I'm with LaFave, Wein, and Frament, and we're out of Guilderland, New York, which is a little suburb that is west of Albany. I attended Adirondack Central School in Boonville. I moved to South Louis for my senior year. I graduated from South Louis. My mom, who's sitting here, still lives in Lyons Falls. I have a deep and abiding warmth for this area and for the people here. These are my people. And I have met with so many survivors over the past few months since this law went into effect. And I want to tell you that when I talk to them, when they sit across from me, and they are, many of them for the first time ever, telling the story of what happened to them that grew inside of them and festered inside of them all of these years because they had no recourse, I can feel them becoming lighter and it helping heal them because they are being given a bit of power back because of this law that has gone into effect. They now have the right to not only speak, but to seek recourse because of what happened to them. They have carried it around inside of them for long enough, and now they are being freed by what has happened in New York. We are the beginning of a movement that will help the children that are alive today and the children for generations to come. It is so important what is happening here, and it is so important for us to acknowledge and understand how much harm was done over the years, and now we need to reclaim the power and go forward.
Taylor Stipple, you're one of the lawyers that works with us and the survivors. You've been assembling the information. You've been investigating the reports that have been brought to us. We've brought suit on behalf of 14 survivors, and there are more who we're working with right now. And what is it that you're learning about the practices here in the Diocese of Ogdensburg that the communities of faith and the communities here need to know?
We've been learning that for a very long time, for many, many years, for decades. The Diocese of Ogdensburg, the dioceses across the state of New York have been employing dangerous and reckless policies that have led to hundreds of kids being harmed. The Child Victims Act allows survivors a 1-year window. A survivor, you could be 100 years old, there's no time limit. During that 1 year, any survivor can come forward safely, confidentially, without using their name, and seek accountability for what happened. Our law firm yesterday filed 14 lawsuits on behalf of 14 courageous survivors, naming 13 perpetrators in the Diocese of Ogdensburg. But it's not on the survivors to be bringing forth the information. That burden shouldn't rest with the survivors. The survivors have not been curating information regarding perpetrators in the diocese for decades. The diocese has done that, and that burden should rest with the diocese. For years, the diocese has been compiling information about survivors who have come to them with reports, with their darkest secret. In November of 2018, the Diocese of Ogdensburg released a list. That list had 28 what they deemed credibly accused clerics on it. It has since grown to 30. On that list are only the priests that the diocese has deemed are credibly accused. The diocese gets to make the decision about who's on that list and who's not on that list. The diocese has chosen to name 30. How many more survivors have come to the diocese with reports about what they suffered? And how many perpetrators are not on that list? We know that in the lawsuits we filed yesterday, we named 4 perpetrators who aren't on the diocese list. But more than that, that list is deficient for other reasons. On that list are 30 accused clerics, credibly accused according to the diocese. What isn't on that list are the full histories of each of those priests, where they worked, their current whereabouts. We only know which priests on that list are deceased, according to the diocese. Over 1/3 of the list that the diocese has deemed credibly accused are still alive, and we don't know where they are. That's a problem. That's a public safety hazard. One of those priests, Father Liam O'Doherty, named in 2 of our lawsuits filed yesterday, worked at St. Anne's in Regis Falls for years, abusing young girls. They convened a grand jury to investigate him. Although the charges were ultimately dismissed, at the time he was charged, Bishop Stanislaus Brzana is quoted as saying, "I stand by him." That caused survivors not to be able to come forward then. So when 2 female survivors came to the diocese in 2001 with reports, the diocese settled those. Father Liam O'Doherty is on their list, but we don't know where he is. We don't know what he's doing. We don't know if he's working in a youth-serving organization down the street. And that's a problem. The diocese needs to step up to share the information in their secret archives, because if the full identities, the full histories, and the status and whereabouts of every single, not just credibly accused according to the diocese, but every single accused cleric, until all of that information is made public, kids aren't safe. It's time for the diocese to do the right thing.
And so the excavation of this information and the disclosures that we make publicly today through these lawsuits, both of those offenders that have been named and those that will be named as we move forward, we will continue to alert the communities, to report to law enforcement, and to make sure that the truth, a more full truth, is known about the histories and the hazards. We've identified the various locations of where we know these survivors on whose suit, on behalf we brought suit, and there's 16 different locations here we listed of these offenders we've named. And those are the cities in which the violation, the rape and molestation of the children occurred by the clerics. But this is just a fraction of the real hazard. And this is just the beginning of the excavation and the permission to survivors to share their secret, to take an action, to speak the truth, to not be in fear of being believed, and being able to know that every time the survivor does take that action, now under the Child Victims Act for the next 360 days, that something more is being done to protect kids in the future. And to the survivors, those that have come forward, and those that are yet to do so, we express deep gratitude to you for your courage, for your willingness, because it's time. It's time for your truth to be heard, your truth to be acknowledged, and your sorrow of the past to be acknowledged, at the same time to know that you are bringing hope and light and truth, and in that hope and in that light and in that truth, children are better protected, our communities are safer. And it's because the survivors now have this chance. It's time. And we express deep gratitude to each of you that have and each of you that will. And we stand with and for you and on your shoulders today as we share this journey. Cynthia.
We are showing you today the tip of the iceberg. We have many cases right now that we were not able to file yesterday. We have brought the beginning of what will happen. There are more cases in the Ogdensburg Diocese. There are more cases in the diocese around New York State. There are also cases against other institutions, the Boy Scouts of America and other institutions. People, because of this law, have been given the freedom to go forward and speak the truth. And this, to them, is something that will help them on the road toward healing, which they have needed for a very long time. Do we have any questions? Yes.
When you compare like the Ogdensburg Diocese to Syracuse Diocese, it's half the size but has twice as many perpetrators. Is there anything that you found that explains sort of the concentration up here?
We have looked at that because there does seem to be, first off, look at the population. So there's a you may have a large space, but you don't have a large population. Syracuse has a large population. We are looking into whether this was a place where priests were moved to when they were accused in other places. And that's something that we will be dealing with in the future.
Out of the 4 new names that you have there, do you know where those people are now?
We do. So, yes, so we were just asked, out of the 4 new clerics, 4 new perpetrators who have been named in our lawsuits, do we know where they are? We do not know. We don't know for certain, but we believe that Father Joseph Francoeur is deceased. We know Father Andrew R. Mulvaney is deceased. We know that Father John Downs, Father Jack Downs, is in ministry. He's a retired priest. He has not had his faculties removed or his ministry restricted, despite one of the survivors we represent reporting directly to the diocese what happened to him. Father Delbel is deceased. I believe he died in 2002.
So the only one who is still alive is the,
Yes. Yep. Father John Downs is alive.
Any other questions?
is he still in the diocese now?
Yes, he is.
This diocese?
Yep. He's a retired priest residing at I believe it's a parish in Ogdensburg.
Same parish where he was accused?
I can't say that off the top of my head, but I can get back to you on that.
Jeff? When Father Jack Downs is spoken of, it needs to be noted that reports had been made. And one of the survivors with whom we're working actually reported him as having abused her.
Him.
Correct? It's a him. And that priest remains in good standing. The bishop made a conscious choice not to alert anybody that he had been accused and chose to continue him to this day in ministry. And he may be in a retired status, but he's still providing services and able to practice and operate as a priest. And we consider that an example of a long-standing peril that exists in the past and in real time, in the present. And it's just one example. And this is just the information we've been able to excavate in the last few months And as we get more information and require the Catholic diocese to disclose all their documents and all the names of all the offenders and all the names of all the offenders who have been reported to them, which has yet to be done because litigation was never allowed. But through that, we will, and we will make the truth known as it's revealed to us so that the communities can be alerted. And so again, to the survivors, you have now a chance, and we're grateful to you. Thank you all.